Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting. The committee will hear applications for minor variances and consents. We'll call each application by name and number, and we'll ask if anyone here wishes to speak regarding an application. If you do, give your name to the secretary so it can be recorded. If you're the applicant or agent, you'll automatically be notified in writing of the decision. If you're not and want a copy in writing, please sign the clipboard at the back of the room regarding which application it is, and we will send it to you. There is a 20-day waiting period after today's decisions become final in order to allow time for appeals to the OMB. And when you are speaking, just a reminder, you have to push the button on the mic so we can hear you, and smile for the cameras as you're on television. Are there any declarations of conflicts from committee members? No? Where did I put that motion? I have a motion by Marcel, seconded by Rudy, and resolve the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting held Wednesday, July 19th, 2017 be adopted as circulated. Are there any errors or omissions? Those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Okay, our first application then is BN 121. It's in the name of Heather Jo Cousin. You're here for this one, Mr. Klein? Good evening. Anyone else wish to speak regarding this one? No? We'll have the planner explain the report then.
This is an application to sever a parcel of land containing a parking lot from a residential property and add it to a commercial property abutting directly to the south. The lands are designated commercial, provincially significant wetlands, and hazard land in the official plan. An environmental impact study was completed for the provincially significant wetland and the significant woodlands on the property and was taken to the Norfolk Environmental Advisory Committee on July 10th. The committee recommended that a fence be installed to prevent further encroachment into the natural areas, and this has been added as a condition. The lands are zoned service commercial, provincially significant wetland, and hazard land, and the application complies with the zone provisions. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms the official plan, and staff recommend support this application and recommend approval.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the planner? Committee? Mr. Klein, you need to add anything? Dennis?
Lots of questions. Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. For application BN 121, I have a motion by Dennis, seconded by Rudy, that the committee hereby approves the application, which is an application to sever a parcel with no frontage and irregular width of 69.87 meters and irregular depth of 109.69 meters, an area of 1.7 acres, retain a parcel of 2.7 acres as a boundary adjustment. The lands that are to be added to the existing commercial parcel located immediately adjacent to the south with roll number ending in 01205, and its final lot size will be 2.6 acres. The subject application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the intent of the Norfolk County official plan regarding boundary adjustments, and that no public input was received, therefore not considered as part of the application. And of course, all the conditions are outlined in the motion as well. Further discussion? Those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Our second application is BN 137, name of George Wood. Anyone here for this one? Mr. Klein? We'll have the planner explain the report then.
Thank you. An application's been received to sever a parcel having a frontage of 35.661 meters and a regular width of 35.661 meters and a regular depth of 110 meters and having an area of 3,213 square meters as a boundary adjustment. The lands are to be added to the existing residential parcel directly to the south. The final lot size will be 1.1 hectares. Subject lands front onto the east side of Brantford Road in the former geographic township of Wyndham. The lands are vacant and are generally surrounded by agricultural uses. There is a commercial tractor part sales business located to the north and a rural residential parcel located to the south. There is also a drain that runs through the severed lands. The purpose of the boundary adjustment is to expand the existing residential property to the south to add both amenity space and additional space for nitrate dilution. The retained lands will continue to function as an agricultural tractor sales business. Planning staff are of the professional opinion that the application to boundary adjust the subject lands to expand an existing rural residential parcel can be considered a technical reason that is minor in nature and does not create a new separate building opportunity. Furthermore, the boundary adjustment does not comprise of any specialty crop areas. Planning staff are of the professional opinion that the subject application is consistent with the PPS and conforms with the official plan with respect to boundary adjustments in the agricultural designation. Staff recommend that this application be approved subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the planner? No. Approval? Okay. Matt? Comment, please.
Staff have two comments in regards to the request. Generally speaking, when we have boundary adjustments and the adjustment results in dual zoning, so in this case, we have we'll call it a rural residential lot that permits a single detached dwelling. When that boundary adjustment occurs, that special provision follows those lands. So it would permit the same type of use on that sliver of land. We generally like to have it cleaned up, so just that special provision stays with the retained lands so that we don't have two tractor sales parts establishments side by side. That's generally why we require that sort of condition as parts of those boundary adjustments.
I think it's a pretty normal request that if we create something with split zoning, we always try to make it just one, like as a rule we have in the past. I don't know if there's any comments here. Awkward silence. Eric?
I'll second Marcel's motion to approve with the conditions in the report.
As is?
As it is, yes.
Well, I don't hear any volunteers to remove it, so we'll continue. Dennis?
Mr. Chairman, just as a matter of interest, what is the cost to apply for that?
Matt?
Through the chair, the cost generally, the regular cost would be around the $1,800 range. However, in this instance, planning staff have agreed to reduce that fee to, I think it's $312,
Oh,
just to help the applicant.
Well, don't tell me you want to get rid of the legal fee. Yeah. I've never heard a lawyer say he wanted to get rid of legal fees before. Okay, I'll read the motion for BN 137 in the name of George Wood. It's been moved by Marcel, seconded by Eric, that the committee approves the application to sever a parcel with a frontage of 35.661 meters, an irregular width of 35.661 meters, a depth of 110.563 meters, an area of 3,213.87 square meters. These lands are to be added to the existing residential parcel directly to the south, roll number ending in 0006, making its final lot size 2.8 acres. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms with Norfolk County official plan regarding boundary adjustments within the agricultural area, and the public input was received, therefore has been considered as part of the application. And we left all the conditions in. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Our next application is AN 114 and also BN 112, I believe, in the name of Lindsay and Betty Day. Mr. Rowe, you're here for this one? Is there anyone besides Mr. Rowe wishes to speak? No, then we'll have the planner explain the report.
Thank you. I'm going to first speak to the minor variance application, and then I will present the severance application.
Okay,
Just
great.
the variance needs to be approved first. An application's been received to sever a lot in the hamlet area requiring relief of 0.05 hectares from the required 0.4 hectare minimum lot area to permit a minimum area of 0.35 hectares. The subject lands are approximately 0.35 hectares in size and are located in Rattlesnake Harbor. The lands contain a single detached dwelling and a shed and are generally surrounded by other rural residential uses. The retained lands are currently being actively farmed as a hobby farm. The applicant is proposing to sever a parcel containing a single detached dwelling within a designated hamlet area. This proposal supports the hamlet character of the area. Furthermore, the applicant has had a hydrogeological assessment completed for the subject land. The finding of the assessment support the proposed size of the severed lot. Professional opinion of planning staff that the requested relief can be considered minor in nature, appropriate development, and generally meets the intent of the Norfolk County official plan and zoning bylaw, and as such, planning staff support this application and recommend that it be approved.
Thank you. Any questions of the planner? Yes, sir.
Yes, relative to the remaining lands, I'm assuming that the piece that still fronts on Wyndham Road 11 is access to the retained lands. And that's question, well, not just comment number one, the real question is, will there be an opportunity to build on the retained lands?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. You're correct.
I would move that then, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion by Dan, seconded by Rudy, that the committee hereby approves the minor variance application to sever a lot in the hamlet requiring relief of the following, which is .05 hectares from the required .4 hectares, to permit an area of .35 hectares, and in accordance with Section 45(1) of the Planning Act of Development, and requested relief is considered appropriate, minor, and maintains the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, and that no public input was received, therefore not considered. It's part of the application. Any further discussion? Those in favor? That's carried. And now we'll do the consent, or severance, or whatever.
Thank you. An application's been received to sever a parcel of land having a frontage of 48.28 meters, a depth of 76.4 meters, a width of 44.05 meters, and having an area of 3,520 square meters, and retain a parcel having an area of 1.9 hectares as the creation of a lot within the hamlet of Wyndham Center. I've already discussed the location of the lands, so I'll just get into the policy review section. The applicant's proposing to sever a parcel containing a single detached dwelling within the designated hamlet area. This proposal supports the hamlet character of the area and conforms the consent criteria of the official plan for hamlet areas. The lands front onto an existing assumed public road. The area is being infilled. The current hamlet boundary would permit one additional residential lot on the west side of the subject lands, and the remaining land is being used as a hobby farm, the use of which would not compromise the residential lot. Furthermore, the applicant has had a hydrogeological assessment completed for the subject lands. It's the professional opinion of planning staff that the subject application is consistent with the PPS and conforms to the official plan regarding lot creation in a hamlet area. Planning staff recommend approval subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you very much. Questions of the planner? Dennis? Thank you. For application BN 112, I've got a motion by Dennis, seconded by Eric, that the committee hereby approves this application to sever a parcel, excuse me, to sever a parcel of land having a frontage of 48.28 meters, a depth of 76.4 meters, a width of 44.05 meters, an area of 3,520 square meters, as a severance of a lot in a hamlet designation. Subject application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, does conform with Norfolk County official plan regarding lot creation in the hamlet, and that no public input was received, therefore not considered as part of the application. Any further discussion? Those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Our next application is BN 133, Lou Ann Hans. Mr. Rowe again. Anyone else here for this one? We'll have the planner explain the report.
An application has been received to establish a gas line easement having a frontage of 6 meters, a width of 6.103 meters, a depth of 53.386 meters, and having an area of 325.5 square meters for the purposes of servicing an adjacent farm parcel. The subject lands measure a total of 0.76 acres in size. The proposed easement measures 0.08 acres and fronts onto the west side of Forestry Farm Road in the former geographic township of North Walsingham. The subject lands to the north, south, and west are currently tilled and being used for agricultural purposes, while the most western part of the lot includes a forested area. The surrounding land uses include agricultural and hamlet residential. The proposed easement will provide servicing companies with greater accessibility to the existing gas line. The proposed location of the gas line easement is located on the northwestern portion of the lot, where there is a small forested area. The proposed location will not have a significant impact on the agricultural crops located to the southeast of the proposed easement. The gas line easement conforms to the hamlet policies in the Norfolk County official plan. The subject lands are currently zoned hamlet residential in the Norfolk County zoning bylaw. No new development is proposed to the subject application, and there are no zone provisions for easements. The subject application complies with the zoning bylaw. It is the professional opinion of community planning staff that the subject application is consistent with the policies of the provincial policy statement and conforms to the intent of the Norfolk County official plan regarding consent applications for the establishment of an easement. Staff support this application and recommend that it be approved, subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you. Any questions of the planner? Or discussion? For application BN 133, it's been moved by Rudy, seconded by Dan, that the committee hereby approves the application to establish a gas line easement having a frontage of 6.1 meters, a width of 6.1 meters, a depth of 53.386 meters, an area of 325.5 square meters for the purpose of servicing an adjacent farm parcel. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms with the Norfolk County official plan regarding relocation of an easement in the hamlet designation, and that no public input was received, therefore not considered as part of the application. Is there further discussion? Those in favor of the motion? That motion's carried. And our next application is AN 123, Peter Tim. Mr. Rowe again. Anyone else for this one? We'll have the planner explain the report then.
This is a minor variance application to permit 200 square meters of usable floor area for accessory buildings, where 100 square meters is generally permitted by the bylaw. This application is a condition of consent application BNPL 2016-247, which was approved last year. The applicant had the option to remove the buildings, but has chosen to ask for a variance instead. The lands are designated and zoned agricultural, and the accessory buildings are a permitted use. The relief is minor and appropriate in this instance, as it matches the character of the area and there's a significant amount of buffering on the property. Staff support this application and recommend that it be approved.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the planner? Committee wishes? Dennis? Thank you. Marcel? For application AN 123, I have a motion by Dennis, seconded by Marcel, that committee hereby approves the application to recognize 4 existing accessory buildings and allow for future expansions requiring relief of 100 square meters from the maximum permitted usable floor area for an accessory buildings of 100 square meters to permit 200 square meter of storage. In accordance with Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the development and requested relief is minor in nature. Appropriate development maintains the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, and that no public input was received, therefore not considered as part of the application. Is there further discussion? Those in favor of the motion? That motion's carried. We're going to have to wait 5 minutes before we do the next one. guess we're back on time. Okay, we're at 5:30 now, so we can continue with the 5:30 part of the agenda. And the first application now is BN 124, Project Farms Limited. Anyone here for this application? No one? We'll go ahead and continue anyway. Whoever. Sure.
Yeah.
Or whoever.
An application has been received to sever a parcel having a frontage of 59.41 meters, a width of 59.42, a depth of 87.88 meters, and having an area of 5,202 square meters, and retain a parcel having an area of 42 hectares as the severance of a dwelling made surplus through farm amalgamation. The applicant is also proposing to establish an electrical power easement having a frontage of 3 meters, a width of 3 meters, and a regular depth of 87.85 meters, and having an area of 264 square meters. The subject application is being reviewed concurrently with the zoning bylaw amendment application to remove a single detached dwelling as a permitted use on the retained lands. The subject lands are 5,202 square meters in size and are located on the west side of Highway 24 in the former geographic township of Windham. The subject lands contain an existing residential dwelling. The lands are part of a larger 42-hectare farm which contain 2 existing barns and a shed. The surrounding land uses are rural residential, agricultural, and hazard lands. The Norfolk County Official Plan, Section 4.2.3, Agricultural Lot Creation and Lot Adjustment Policy states that consent to sever land may be considered for the following purposes: a currently habitable dwelling existing prior to August 24th, 1978, surplus to a farming operation as a result of consolidation, subject to the policies of Section 4.2.3 B and C. The existing dwelling was constructed prior to 1978, in this case 1961, and is considered surplus to the farming operation. The proposed electrical easement would not create an additional lot on its own and therefore conforms to the policies of the Norfolk County Official Plan. The retained lands will be rezoned such that a single detached dwelling is removed as a permitted use and is currently being reviewed with the zoning bylaw amendment application. The proposed electrical easement will provide accessibility for servicing purposes on the retained farm parcel. The proposed easement will ensure that individuals whom work for electrical servicing companies will use the proposed easement as opposed to the existing driveway on the subject lands. This will ensure that the homeowners of the lands will not be disrupted because of any noise when servicing is needed. Planning staff are of the opinion that the proposal meets the intent of the official plan and it would not impact the surrounding land uses or property owners. The application meets the provisions of the agricultural zone. The retained lands comply with the policies of the zoning bylaw. No new development is proposed to the subject application and there are no zone provisions for easements. The subject application is consistent with the intent of the zoning bylaw. Staff have completed a site inspection and are of the opinion that the proposed severance of a dwelling made surplus through farm amalgamation and the proposed electrical easement will not result in any negative impacts to the surrounding property owners. It is the professional opinion of community planning staff that the subject application is consistent with the policies of the provincial policy statement, conforms to the intent of the Norfolk County Official Plan and zoning bylaw. Staff support this application and recommend that it be approved, subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you. Any questions of the planner? Wishes? Dan? Thank you. Rudy? For application BN 124, I have a motion by Dan, seconded by Rudy, that the committee hereby approves the application to sever a parcel with a frontage of 59.41 meters, a width of 59.42 meters, a depth of 87.88 meters, and an area of 5,202 square meters, and retain a parcel with 42 hectares as the severance of a dwelling made surplus for farm amalgamation. The applicant is also proposing to establish an electrical power easement having a frontage of 3 meters, a width of 3 meters, a depth of 87.85 meters, an area of 264 square meters. The subject application is being reviewed concurrently with a zoning bylaw amendment application to remove the single detached dwelling as a permitted use on the retained lands. The subject application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the Norfolk County official plan, and the Norfolk County zoning bylaw regarding establishment of an easement and surplus farm dwelling severances, and that no public input was received, therefore not considered as part of this application. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Carried. Our next application is BN 115, Nightingale Farms Limited. Mr. Rowe. Anyone else here? Your name, sir? Okay, anyone else? Okay, then we'll have the planner explain the report.
This is an application for a farm split. 7.9 acres are proposed to be severed, containing a greenhouse and a bunkhouse, and a hydro easement is also proposed through this application. The retained lands would be 100 acres. The lands are designated agricultural and conform to the criteria for a farm split and an easement. The lands are zoned agricultural, and an amendment is being processed currently to address the deficient lot area, frontage, or front yard, and exterior side yard. Public input was received, generally around the fact that there is an opportunity for medical marijuana to be grown in the greenhouses. So staff, or the county, has the opportunity to regulate medical marijuana production facilities, which are different than the operations that grow for personal use or for someone else's personal use. So if it is that type of operation, we do have the opportunity to regulate it. If it's not, then we don't have that opportunity. But regardless, medical marijuana can be grown on this property whether or not it is severed. So it didn't, either way, it can be grown. So staff don't have control over that. It does meet the intent of the official plan and is consistent with the provincial policy statement regarding lot creation in the agricultural area. And as such, staff support this application and recommend that it be approved.
Any questions of the planner at this point? Mr. Dertinger, I think, would you like to come up and to the podium? Okay, I will say we have your letter here, and we've all had the opportunity to read it, so.
Okay,
Smoother.
thank you, committee, for letting me speak. It's just the idea I want to just go on public record here. Sorry, I don't have any issue with the severance of land. The issue has to do with the medical marijuana and the odor it emits. We literally live right across the road from the greenhouses, and with 2.5 or 2.85 acres of marijuana, it's going to give off a pungent odor that is going to basically destroy the quality of life that we enjoyed, our residents that we've been living there for 17 years. And it's one of those situations where you're going to be smelling the medical marijuana possibly 365 days of the year, all day long, for as long as the operation is in effect. And that situation is untenable for us. And, we're just speaking out against the possibility of that happening. And whether the severance makes any difference or not, I just wanted to go on the record and state that that is the case, right? Other than that, thank you for your attention.
Thanks for your comments and your letter. Dennis?
Mr. Chairman, I guess going back to the comments of the planner, I think I heard her say that there's nothing prohibiting the growing of medical marijuana on that property. Is that correct?
Through the chair, it's permitted. It's a little confusing because there's two types of operations. So there's just straight growing, which there are properties all over Norfolk County now that are doing that the county has no control over.
Okay.
And then if it's a production facility, which is more like a factory like Marican near Langton, we do have the ability to regulate that, and this area would not comply with that because you have to be 150 meters from the nearest dwelling. So if it's under that, then it won't comply, but if it's just the personal growing type, then we have no opportunity to regulate it.
Okay, thank you.
Marcel?
I was wondering if the applicant or the complainant could tell us how far away his house is from the greenhouse? How many feet?
How many meters?
I would say that from our property line, it's about 30 meters.
900 feet. So I'm just wondering, the minimum distance, like for animals, is what, 1,500?
Through the chair, the minimum distance for animals depends on the minimum distance separation formula. So there's a calculation that determines the setback. But 1,500, it's usually much less than that.
Or is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes, good evening. I guess there's two issues. What we're talking about here is the severance to permit the greenhouse to be separated from the remainder of the farm. We've gone through the justification process required by the county, and county staff support it. As far as what is growing there, obviously whatever they grow has to be legal. It has been used to grow organic vegetables, and it can continue to grow a whole range of vegetables and fruits. As far as the medical marijuana, if they were to do processing, then they do require approval in terms of zoning from the region, or from the county rather. That's not part of this application, nor have they proceeded to do anything in that regard. We're strictly talking about the severance of this greenhouse from the larger operation.
Thank you. Dennis?
Did I hear the agent say that at this point in time, there really is no plan on how this facility would be used? They have grown organic vegetables, and it's designed to grow organic vegetables. They can grow a whole range of different types of vegetables. They are permitted to grow all types of vegetables and crops on there, and that's what's being approved, is to have this as a separate standalone greenhouse operation.
Is it being sold?
Pardon me?
Is this application here because that part's going to be sold off?
That part potentially could be sold off or put in a different form of ownership and be financed separately as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan?
Well, considering that the boundary line will have no effect on what that land will be used for, so therefore I would move the application.
Normally, we don't give a second opportunity, but I will this time. So we do have a motion to approve. Is there a seconder for that motion? Marcel? Okay, so what I would say at this point, just so everybody's clear, is that what the application is, before the committee is to sever a greenhouse operation away from the rest of the farm. And in order to do that, they have to qualify the greenhouse operation has to be a viable operation it has to be able to be viable in order for the farm split to take place. So it must qualify under those conditions. What we are not doing is telling people who buy this property or whoever's ownership goes in what they can grow and what they can't grow in there. That is not up to us. We simply are dealing with land issue. And if it comes to something that you don't like in the future, there is the council and the bylaw and a lot of rules and regulations that have to be enforced, but we're not the people to do that either. So I sympathize with you, but it's really not our purview here to deal with that part of it. So we have a motion by Dan, seconded by Marcel. I'll read the motion if I can find it. For BN 115 Nightingale Farms Limited, moved by Dan, seconded by Marcel, that committee hereby approves the application to sever a parcel of land with a frontage of 195 meters, a depth of 221.9 meters, and irregular width of 195.9 meters, having an area of 7.9 acres as a farm split. An electrical power easement is also proposed with a frontage of 3 meters, a width of 3 meters, a depth of 196.86 meters, an area of 488 square meters. The subject application is consistent with the policies of the Provincial Policy Statement 2014 and the Norfolk County Official Plan regarding lot creation within the agricultural designation. Public input was received and was considered as part of this application. And all the conditions are outlined in the motion as well. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Oh, okay. Okay, our next application, I guess we do two at once here. BN 122, it's in the name of Great Lakes Offshore Services, and BN 129, also in the name of Great Lakes Offshore Services. Anyone here for this one? Okay, first your name. I'm sorry? Your Oh, agent. Thank you. Over here. Okay. Is there anyone else? Did I miss anybody? Okay, you'll get your opportunity shortly. We'll have the planner explain the report or reports, however.
Thank you. I'm going to try to do these both at the same time because they're quite related. So I'll do the BNPL 2017-122 first. An application's been received to sever a parcel of land having a frontage of 10.67 meters and a regular depth of 113.45 meters at a width of 8.78 meters and having an area of 1,106 square meters as a boundary adjustment. The lands are to be added to an abutting parcel to the west. And the other, which is BNPL 2017-129, an application's been received to sever a parcel having frontage of 10.67 meters, a depth of 109.9 meters, a width of 8.78 meters, having an area of 1,071 square meters as a boundary adjustment. The lands are to be added to an abutting parcel to the east. Subject lands front onto the northwest side of Don John Boulevard in the urban area of Port Dover. The subject lands are vacant. The retained lands are to the east, are vacant, and are subject to an additional boundary adjustment application, which is the other one I was speaking to, ending in 129. The surrounding land uses are residential and marine commercial. Public input has been received for these applications and therefore has been considered as part of the recommendation, and I will speak to the comments that have been received near the end. In regards to the provincial policy statement, section 1.1.31 of the PPS states that settlement areas shall be the focus of growth and development, and their vitality and regeneration shall be promoted. Section 1.1.1 of the PPS states that healthy and livable and safe communities are sustained by promoting efficient development and land use patterns which sustain the financial well-being of the province and municipalities over the long term, and also that accommodating an appropriate range and mix of residential, employment, institutional, recreation, park, open space, and other uses to meet the long-term needs. The applicant's proposing to boundary adjust part of a vacant residential lot in order to add to the subject lands to the abutting parcel. This application will promote efficient development and increase the financial well-being of the urban area of Port Dover and within Norfolk County. The proposed application will create a potential mix of residential housing, and the application is consistent with the policies of the PPS. Subject lands are designated urban residential and hazard lands in the Norfolk County Official Plan. Section 9.6.32C of the OP states that regard shall be had to the other policies within the plan and to the following criteria when considering an application for consent. Consent shall only be granted when the land fronts onto an existing assumed public road that's maintained on a year-round basis. Consents will have the effect of infilling existing areas and not extending existing development. Creation of the lot does not compromise the long-term use of the remaining land or retained parcel. Also, section 4.71A of the OP states that the predominant use of the land shall be for a variety of urban dwelling types, including single detached dwellings. As these lands are being boundary adjusted to the property to the west and subsequent application to the east, this will allow for that respective property owner to develop the lands and construct a residential dwelling that does not exceed 2 dwelling units per lot within the urban area of Port Dover. Planning staff are of the opinion that all of the criteria regarding consent applications have been met in this instance. The proposed boundary adjustment will have lands that front onto an existing assumed public road, and that's maintained year-round. A new lot will not be created. Instead, the subject lands are being boundary adjusted to the property to the west and also to the east. In terms of the zoning bylaw, the subject lands are zoned urban residential and hazard lands in the zoning bylaw, and staff have completed a site inspection and are of the opinion that the proposed boundary adjustment can be considered in this instance. The end result of the boundary adjustment is not anticipated to result in negative impacts to surrounding property owners. In terms of the comments that have been received, we have received, I believe, 3 comments. These comments generally relate to the existing single detached dwelling and its proximity to the side yard of that property, and also to the house spacing and flow that this boundary adjustment would create. Staff have provided the committee with a printout. Looks like this. This printout shows the subject lands. The lot in the middle is the lot that is being split and then boundary adjusted to either side. This would result in both those lots all along the sides being enlarged. And in regards to the comments that have been received, the existing house has been constructed already and is in conformity with our zoning bylaw. It's 1.2 meters from a side lot line, and actually it's quite consistent with the house that exists presently at 69 Don John Boulevard. and its proximity to that side yard. So in relation to the character of the neighborhood, it's quite consistent with the character of its neighbor. It's also consistent with the flow and spacing of the neighbor. So planning staff do not have any concerns in regards to the spacing or the setback of the existing house, or how this would result in for the construction of a new house on the newly created adjusted lands. In conclusion, planning staff are of the professional opinion that the subject application is consistent with the policies of the PPS. It conforms with the Norfolk County official plan, and as such, staff support this application and recommend that it be approved subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you very much. Does the committee have any questions of the planner? Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify that I understand what took place here. In 211, 4 lots were registered, correct?
Correct, and I believe they're referring to the lot that is not subject to this application. I believe they're referring to the lot on the far east, because right now this application deals with 3 lots, not 4.
Right. But back in 211, when the 4 lots were registered, one of which has been built on, right?
Through the chair, one of them has a completed house, and one of them has a house that is currently under construction.
Okay. So what we're now doing is we're taking the remaining 3 lots and collapsing it to 2. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of the planner? Is it Paul you wish to speak to us? Is this your, the letter we have here? Okay. If you need to speak to us, we have to insist you come up. It's being recorded and it's on camera, so we need you here so we can record you.
Okay,
Perfect.
I would just say it creates quite an imbalance